Just want to welcome everyone who is here and watching online to the 4th annual SLCC Asia Conference. As usual, you'll hear presentations today from all over the Asia map. In Southeast Asia, we're going to hear from Cassie Evans, whose research focuses on relics from Latter-day Saint veterans of the Vietnam War. From Akshata Rangarajan, whose research focuses on the historical narratives that can be gleaned from contemporary textile art. From Clayton Brown, who will share his insights on the daughters of the Vietnamese Revolution. And from our keynote speaker, Shaunakim Lowy Ball, who will explore the nexus between mysterious Javanese so-called temple coins, Chinese cash, and Indian faith systems. And then moving west across the Bay of Bengal, we reach India, where one of our conference's staples, Sayan Lod, who's presented at all 4 so far, so we expect him at number 5, will share historical insights with us on anti-Semitism there, and where Arti Nakra will dive into the influence of Bollywood on the Indian diaspora here in Salt Lake City, and where Prachi Shah will take a magnifying glass to the iconography of key female figures in Jainism and their evolution in temple architecture, and where Harshika Gupta will subject the Bhagavad Purana to a feminist lens. Moving north across occupied Tibet, then east to the Chinese heartland, one of our student presenters, Noah Monk, will attempt to answer the question, why is China red? While another, Patrick Abrams, will take a look at Sun Tzu's Art of War, and a special presentation will be heard by the recently freed Jacob Harlan, who will offer us a glimpse into his 5-year experience in the Chinese prison system. Moving northeast, we reach Korea, where another conference staple, Walter Jones, will explore the evolving military relationship between the peninsula and the United States in the early 1950s, and where Colin Moore will take a look at the Koreas in the post-Cold War era. Meanwhile, in the US itself, we'll have a special panel, Hosok O, Yukiya Saito, and Ryoko Okamura, who will discuss the Japanese-American experience or experiences during World War II here. So like I said, all over the map. Of course, with Asia, we could be even more over the map, but not this year. We're very fortunate to be able to convene our conference here at SLCC. We got the Oak Room this year, so that's good. Many people have gone to significant lengths to make sure our event can happen. From our IT team here, notably Dan Johnson, Leif Erickson, to the history department's do-it-all, Laura Rice, to our department chair, Ted Moore, and many others. Thank you very much for your efforts. And once again, thank you for being here. And let's get started with session 1. Our next speaker will be joining us on Zoom, we hope. Sayan Lod is a doctoral candidate in history at Presidency University in Kolkata, India. His proposed thesis will be on the emergence of new Jews in India via the Judaizing movements among socioeconomically marginalized Christian groups in northeastern and southern India. He's previously studied the Baghdadi Jewish community of Kolkata for his undergraduate and graduate dissertations. His primary areas of interest are Jewish studies and studies of anti-Semitism and mass violence from an Indian perspective. Sayan Lod.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Actually, I'm not able to share my screen, so okay, thank you. I can share it now. Okay, is my screen visible? I hope I am audible, so I'm just starting. So I would like to thank the organizers for providing me with this opportunity to present at this conference. And my topic would be Antisemitism in India, a case study of Dalit Voice. So over here is an issue of the Dalit Voice journal. The journal officially claimed to be the voice of the persecuted nationalities denied human rights across the world. In India, Dalits have literally referred to as broken or downtrodden, have referred to the a group, a socio-economically marginalized group located outside the fourfold Varna-based caste system. They have been subject to the historical dreaded practice of untouchability by the upper caste, although it has been outlawed in post-colonial India. and various kind of protections and safeguards have been provided to them, it still persists at some levels. Over here in this issue, you can see that this is one of the most important tropes used by the journals, that the Jews and Jews of India are cousins. By the Jews of India, it refers to the Brahmins or the upper caste Hindus. And the journal gave many controversial theories throughout its existence from 1980s till 2011, whereby it was published as a fortnightly from Bangalore. And one of its theories you can see here, such as Buddhism and Islam, has everything in common. So, towards the anti-Semitism or the hatred toward Jews in India is primarily latent, and it's a rhetoric. It's rarely aimed at the local Jews, except in a few instances. In 2011, among 1.2 million Indians, there were just 5,000 Jews and 21 million Dalits, who are officially called scheduled castes. And the methodology that I have adopted for this study primarily includes the content analysis of the Dalit Voice journal available on their archive. Although the most of the issues are not available from 1980s and 2000, I was able to access most of the issues from 1990s and 2010s. I searched the archives with the terms such as Jew, Judaism, Zionism, Nazi, and Israel. Hindu Nazi, by which is referred to the Hindu nationalist parties such as the BJP. And the Dalit Voice was published from 1981 to 2011, and its founder and chief editor V.T. Rajashekhar was once arrested for all these controversial views that the journals expressed, which I am going to discuss over the next few minutes. And its ideology was primarily anti-Brahminist, anti-racist, and anti-caste. In some cases, it was controversial. It adopted to theories, stories, and even forgeries, and sometimes it was openly anti-Semitic. In other cases, it was soft anti-Semitism, and it kind of brought the source of all kinds of world's problems, ranging from poverty to the 9/11 attacks to either Zionism or Brahminism. And the Columbia University referred to it as the sole spokesperson for the entire deprived and dehumanized lot in India. Let's discuss. I'll briefly mention about the Dalit and mainstream historiography over here. The negotiations and the relations between the both of them are pretty complex, whereas the mainstream historiography in India is primarily looks at the history from the lens of the privileged elite and or sometimes the subaltern groups. The Dalit historiography primarily looks at it through the angle of caste and those located at the lower levels of the caste system. And the relationship has been referred to as a resistant epistemology by Sephora Joseph. In 1980s, when the journal started its journey, its main anti-Semitic notion was deicide, whereby it blames the Jews for killing Jesus. Although in 1960s, the Nostra Aetate has clearly stated that the Jews were not responsible for it. And regarding anti-Semitic tropes, it adopted many others, such as it in a 1989 article, it equated the upper caste Marxist left democratic front government of Kerala, which is headed by the Communist Party of India, and with the Jews for the government's role in lifting the ban on alcohol trade. It refers to an age-old stereotype of the Jews selling wine to corrupt the Gentile societies. And here you can see one of its controversial notions, whereby it refers to the rich is pro-Israeli Jews in the US as the upper caste Jews, and the black American Jews as the Dalit blacks. Here it's equated the Indian caste system with the American society, and it even accused the Brahmins, who it refers to as constantly as Hindu Nazis, for selling India to Israel as a price for its alliance was struggle against the Muslim, whereby overtures were made between India and Israel for officially establishing the diplomatic relations. In 1990s, the all-controlling Jewish trope dominated, whereby the Zionists were blamed for controlling every organization that exists in the world, ranging from UNO, IMF, World Bank, Alliance International, and even the Vatican. It blamed the US presidents and billionaires as Zionists, and most of the events of the 20th century, starting from the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia till the end of Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union, as being Jewish sponsored, to the extent of Karl Marx being a Jew and the pawn in the game of chess. This kind of theories dominates the pages of the journal. In 1991, a tragic event occurred in the Indian state of Kashmir, whereby a group of Israeli tourists were kidnapped by the Islamic militants. And the journal was insensitive and unempathetic to their plight, their plight by referring to them as Mossad agents sent by the Hindu Nazis or the Brahmins to and who were taught a lesson by the local Kashmiris. At this event, actually, it speeded up the official relations, whereby the diplomatic relations were established the next year. And regarding the establishment of the relations, it calls it as the Zionist invasion of India, with the Jews joining with Hindu Nazis in their anti-Muslim drive. And it even referred to the Congress Prime Minister during that time, P.V. Narasimha Rao, as a more Nazi than the Hindu Nazis or the BJP party members themselves. And it constantly uses the trope of Hindu Nazi Brahmins, who it referred to as the founding fathers of racism, who supplied the Nazis in Germany with their chosen race theory, the swastika symbol, Sanskrit language, and it claimed that they worshipped Hitler as an avatar of Vishnu. The concept of avatar is a divine incarnation adopted by God Vishnu 10 times upon earth to actually kill all evil. In 1991, in a strange case, it referred to the assassination of former Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi, to have been masterminded by Mossad, while actually Sri Lanka-based LTTE was responsible for it. And it referred to the establishment of the State of Israel as the result of the cleverest possible surgery on the body of Palestine by UN, whereby Jews forcibly took over the lands from Palestinians. And it mentioned that Jews from across the world settling in the captured land and constantly engaged in delegitimization of the State of Israel. However, it completely overlooked the plight of at least 700,000 Jews across the Arab world who were thrown out immediately after the state establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, and it continued till about mid 1960s. And it referred to this Brahmin Jewish conspiracy, which finds space in most of its pages. Who have been These two groups have been united by their hatred towards the Muslims, and is an interesting case whereby it mentioned a coup by Hindu Nazi army, which it referred to the Indian army, led by a Malayali Kochini Jew, Lieutenant General J.F.R. Jacob, who was actually a Jew, Baghdadi Jew from Calcutta, and not a Kochini Jew, and Nambutiri Brahmin Lieutenant General Candidate. And in this case, Lieutenant General Candidate was actually belonged to the Nayar caste and not to Brahmin caste. Regarding the Jewish, or it gave theories of Jewish origin of Chitpavan Brahmins and Saint Thomas Christians, where regarding the Chitpavan Brahmins, was an interesting story. While it's actually converse cases too. In the local Bene Israel Jews of Maharashtra, they adopted the origin story of the Chitpavan Brahmins in their effort to move out, top of the social ladder over there. The journal accused Rabbi Avikel of Amishav, who aimed the organization Amishav was aimed at bringing the Judaism movements from across the diaspora to Israel, and it blamed him for planning to use cheap Indian labor to replace the dangerous Palestinian labor in the settlements in West Bank and Gaza. And in 1999, it adopted a different approach, such as referring to the Jews across the world as broken Dalits and the Dalits in India as diaspora Hebrews united by their oppression and discrimination across history. And it claimed that Jews have a divine responsibility towards the liberation of Dalits in India. It softened its anti-Semitism a little bit, and towards the end of the decade, it referred to the racism in USA as a plot by capitalistic Jewish bosses to subjugate the black people, totally ignoring the socio-political and cultural realities of United States. In 2000, the all-controlling Jew dominated as the dominant trope. In 2001, it advertised the Protocols of Elders of the Jan, a forged book, which it claimed to be an authentic and top secret book of the Zionists for world domination, and also claimed it to have been an Illuminati book. And it refers to the 9/11 attacks on US as a Zionist plot or conspiracy undertaken by Israel's Mossad to launch deadly wars upon innocent Muslims, inventing the concept of Islamic terrorism. And on the following articles, it refers to the US's war on terror in Iraq and Afghanistan as the Jews using enslaved Christians to wage a war against the Muslim world. And according to the journal, the Israelis were the rich and aggressive Jewish cowards, unable to conquer the spirit of Islam in the Middle East despite their efforts. In 2010, the journal adopted by far its most controversial views, and it was closed down only a year after due to all these controversies. And this was the dominant trope in the few issues that were published in 2010s, the money-minded and all-controlling Jew, whereby Israel was depicted as a Zionist octopus, an old anti-Semitic trope whereby the Jew is being depicted as an octopus controlling everything. And over here, it referred to Israel as the world's only exclusive racist state, ignoring the fact that it's the only, perhaps the only democracy in the Middle East. And it claimed the Jews to have been controlling everything, ranging from knowledge, media, banks, entertainment, and posing danger to entire humanity. And it referred to the Brahmins as the mentally retarded, useful idiots used by the Jews to do their bidding. The Jewish Brahmin conspiracy continued, uh, whereby it claimed that the Jews and Brahmins engage in destroying the cultures of the original inhabitants of the land where they inhabit and destroy their histories. In case of the West, it claimed that the Christians were the original inhabitants, and in case of India, it claimed Dalits are the original inhabitants. And it claimed that both these communities have the blueprints for their global domination, such as in case of Jews, it was the forged protocols, and in case of Brahmins, it was Arthashastra. Arthashastra is an ancient Indian treatise on statecraft and diplomacy. And then these are pretty much dominant now, such as global, which refer to global warming and globalization as a Zionist fraud to benefit Jewish-controlled IMF and World Bank, and it referred to a plethora of world leaders ranging from Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, US President Barack Obama, and Palestinian leaders such as Yasser Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas as Zionist agent or stooge doing the bidding of their Jewish masters. In case of Manmohan Singh, they ridiculed his Sikh religion by referring to him as Khatri Sikh PM. In case of Barack Obama, they referred to him as he is deceiving Americans with his black identity and Muslim name. And in case of Palestinian leaders, they claim that the Arafat and Abbas were betrayers of Palestinians who were signing peace treaties with Israel. And in one of his last issues, it openly called for a genocide of Jews and Brahmins by Muslims. It claimed the surrounding Muslim nations of Israel to send Muslim suicide bombers, whereby it claimed the Zionists in Israel, cornered from all sides, will then have no other place to go but to jump into the Mediterranean. And it also called for a similar action against the Brahmins who would commit suicide in large numbers in India when cornered from all sides by the Dalits and Muslims. And ultimately, it said it to be good reasons to bad rubbish. And it also engaged in Holocaust denial by calling the Holocaust a manufactured lie to create Israel and foment trouble in the Middle East, completely ignoring the socio-political realities of the Middle East and Europe in late 19th and throughout the 20th century and the global power politics. And interestingly, this is one of its funniest plots, whereby it mentioned that about a Zionist plot for creating two more Israels in Argentina and the United States of America. And in its later issues, it denied the Israelite origin of Ashkenazi Jews by referring to the Khazar myth of the Khazar origin of Ashkenazi Jews and Henry Ford's anti-Semitic book, The International Jew. This book later inspired Nazi anti-Semitism. And its most startling claim was that the Russian Jews, having to have masterminded the pogroms in Eastern Europe in 19th century, and they were in turn financed by the British Jews to actually push the Jews from Eastern Europe to US to influence American politics. And and it again gave Jewish origin to communism, claiming Lenin to be a Jew, the age-old anti-Semitic stereotypes, and blamed the Sassoon family, which was one of known as the Rothschild of the East, which dominated the business families across the Jewish Asia for spreading the communism in China alongside Sun Yat-sen. And it actually praises Mao Zedong for stopping communism in China, that which refers to Soviet communism as the Jewish Zionist communism and to Chinese communism as the real communism. And in case of Iran developing nuclear weapons, it called it as the second revolution, with the first revolution being Iran's Islamic revolution in late 1970s, and it claimed that Iran will play a crucial role in ending the Zionist dominance over the globe, culminating in the disappearance of terrorism by silencing Israel and restoring Palestinians their lands and rights. This brings me towards the last few slides of my presentation. The journal constantly equates the terms Jew, Zionist, and Israeli. According to them, Brahmins are the Jews of India, and I would like to state that the anti-Semitic sentiments used by the journal is primarily to fuel its anti-Brahmin stats and to generate hatred towards the Brahmins and not towards the Jews, as it has rarely targeted any local Indian Jews, except in the case of General Jacob, and is equally critical of all religious groups in India, with the exception of Islam, and nearly all political parties in India to develop this theory of Zionist Jewish Brahmin conspiracy. The common anti-Semitic tropes include the all-controlling Jew, the corruption and the money-minded Jew, and deicide. Scholar Yulia Egorov has mentioned this to be a mix of various Western mythologies and multiple local agendas, whereby the Jews are used as a second other, with Brahmins being the first. And the most controversial issues in the 2010s, in which it even praised Russian President Vladimir Putin as the most dangerous enemy of the Jews since the times of Adolf Hitler, and Iranian Ayatollah Khamenei for blocking all kinds of bad things that is occurring in the world, such as ranging from Zionism to communism to liberalism, democracy, and all this. And to sum up, this anti-Semitism in Dalit discourse is exclusive to this Dalit Voice journal and not a general feature. Most of the Dalits in India are socio-politically and economically, even culturally marginalized, and they struggle to make their daily ends meet. So they have, in case of the journal, it has been seen that it generates sensationalized content through manipulation, misrepresentation, and even resorting to falsehood, and the lack of awareness about Judaism in India is too much. Sometimes it's confused to be a sect of Christianity or Islam. Moreover, the synagogues in India are called mosques or masjids and churches or gijjas by non-Jews, and they are primarily looked after by Muslim caretakers. However, although marginal, the Dalit anti-Semitism can prove to be lethal in India if it's combined with the dominant leftist and Islamic anti-Semitic discourse that is prevalent in the current political polarized landscape. And education and increasing awareness about the Jews and Judaism are the only way to combat the latent anti-Semitism in India, which is rarely come out in public. And there are very few institutes in India, such as OP Jindal Global University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Presidency University, which has courses related to Israel and Jews. And there are a few more covers of the journals, whereby over here you can see it is showing the anti-Semitic trope of the deicide, with the Jews killed Jesus and are now even controlling the Catholic Church. Over in this issue, which was interesting, it claimed that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are actually sponsoring to spread AIDS in Africa and replicating the same model in India among the Dalits. And over in this journal called for a third world war, which would begin between, on one side would be the Brahminists and Zionists supported by United States, and on the other side would be the Islamists backed by China and Russia. With that, I'll end my presentation. I'd like to thank the organizers for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sayan.
I have a question for Sion Lode, which is, your Dalit voice seems to have a lot of tropes of anti-Semitism that align Brahmins with presumed anti-Muslim Jews. The question is, are the Dalits who are writing this, do they themselves feel more akin, I would have thought, to other Hindus? Or are they making common cause with Muslims in a way that, it's not just anti-Brahmin, but being anti the caste system kind of means that there is some break with a Hindu identity?
Thank you for your question. It's actually a pretty complex issue over here. Dalit voice is actually a pretty marginalized even in Dalit discourse over here. They do not claim themselves to be Hindus. They are openly anti-Hindus. They align with the Muslims. And regarding this case, I would like to highlight an interesting aspect. There is a Judaizing movement among the Dalits of Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh. The Madiga Dalits over here, they are among some of the poorest in that area, and they officially converted to Christianity in the colonial era. But after, in the post-colonial era, when reservations and other kinds of social security and affirmative actions were introduced for the Hindu Dalits, by Hindu, the Indian government refers to not only the Hindus but also the Sikhs, Buddhists, and Jains. That is all the Indic religions. So in official records, they are Hindus, but in their private lives and religious practice, they are Christians, the Dalits of Andhra Pradesh. So among them, there is one article by them. In the 1999, the soft turn towards Judaism by the Dalit Voice. That article was written by one Dalit Jew from the state of Andhra Pradesh, who was then Christian, but later that group converted to Judaism actually, and some of them are now settled in Israel. So it's actually pretty complex over here. I hope that somewhat answers your question.
And for Lloyd, uh, has the beliefs of hatred towards Jews caused any extremist hate acts in India?
Okay, thank you for your question. There have been, but they are very few, countable in numbers. And in most of the cases, the attackers were not from the locality. During the 2008 Mumbai attacks, the most violent anti-Semitic attack in Indian history, whereby the Chabad House in Mumbai was attacked by Muslims from Pakistan. The terrorists, they attacked the Chabad House, and alongside Taj Hotel and other Oberoi Trident Hotel, many other places in Mumbai, killing many people. And during the 1991 and 1990 to 1991 riots in Mon 1992, I am not remember the exact year, riots in Bombay at that time, the local Hindus, they actually burnt a Jewish synagogue under the mistaken identity of it as a mosque, as the synagogues are known as mosques and churches over here in India, and not and the local Bene Israeli Jews in Bombay, they are more closer to the Muslims, and hence they thought them to be Muslims and they burnt the synagogue, and they were unaware that it was a Jewish synagogue. And in 1947, during the riots in Karachi, at that time it was still a part of British India. The local Jews were attacked by Muslims who had migrated to Karachi from the United Provinces in North India. And in Pakistan, that is the former East and West Pakistan, both countries, there have been many attacks on Jews after the creation of the State of Israel. But there were very few cases, and they migrated to India and Israel. But in mainland, in the post-independence India, there have been very few attacks on the local Jews. I hope that answers your question. Actually, it's mainly the anti-Semitism that is there. It mainly remains at the top level and hidden, and it rarely affects the local Indian Jews. So they always propagate the theory that there is no anti-Semitism in India, as they haven't ever faced it. And the few Muslims and Hindus who are in connection with the Jews, just about 4,000 or 5,000 out of a population about 1.4 billion people. They never indulge in these sorts of anti-Jewish hatred. They always cherish and protect the few Jews that are there still in India.